What's up, everybody? Welcome to Narcocop MMA. This is the fucking Dana White's Contender Series, episode number 1, with two great co-hosts, two great fucking cappers that absolutely crushed it last year when it came to the Dana White's Contender Series. I mean, between the three of us, if you just followed last year, you probably made a lot of bags of money. So, let me stop with the bullshit and introduce these two great guys. I will start off by introducing Gordo here. Gordo Gambles, what's up, my friend? Are you ready for this season of the Dana White's Contender Series?
I am absolutely ready, my friend. You know what? It was something that Liam really got me into last year. We did the videos every single week. I mean, he went 10 for 10. There's nothing going on other than just pure winners coming out of that guy. But it's been a lot of fun. It's been something that you're really able to dive into, right? It's a kind of a niche spot because a lot of lower level guys, a lot of people that no one's doing really the research on. And it's fun to get into there, see if we can catch the bookies lacking on some of the lines. And I think that maybe we've been able to do that from that first week. So I think we're getting her going. I'm super excited to do this with you guys, and let's make some money here.
Yeah, man. I mean, I love digging deep for these tapes, these fucking notes. I mean, we got my guy right here, the other co-host, LiamPicksFights. What's up, Liam? This man, let me tell you, when it comes to notes, this mother, I can't even say the next word, has a lot of damn notes, guys, and they are fucking good. So what's up, my brother Liam? How you doing? Are you ready for this year of Dana White's Contender Series?
What's going on, my man? Absolutely. I have a couple things that I did last year on the Contender Series that I felt like really set my capping apart. You know, I was able to sniff out a couple of big underdogs. We were able to hit Chad and Hellinger, Canada, my absolute boy for life, and a bunch of other ones. So, yeah, I had a really tough weekend on the UFC. Nothing better than an opportunity to get some get back on a Tuesday, and think there might be a couple spots I like. And yeah, I'm excited to talk about the fights.
Yeah, man, let's smash them. They can't hold a good man down, and they're not holding you down, my friend. So let me really quick go over the chat, because without these shows, without the chat, I mean, these shows would not be here. So let me say thank you to Grateful Dude, Zach Johnson, Mr. X, Daz, the coach. I mean, we got Timothy, my buddy Timothy Troiano. Dumpy's always in here. What's up, my friend? And look at who's here. It is Mushroom, the Lambo man himself. Wiz, another very, very sharp capper in the house. What's up, Wiz? Let's see who else we got. Rips and Picks. What's up, brother? Emperor G. What's up, bro? Thank you for being here. And Diesel, a whole bunch of others. Richard, thank you to each and every one of you. There's so many in here that I can't go through all of you, but thank you guys very, very much. And without further ado, there is Liam. There is 70 of them already in here, bro. They want to hear it. They literally want to hear it. And we are going to give it to them. And we will start off by the first fight of the night. It is Alessandro Costa versus Andres Luna Martini. Gordo, I will give this one off to you. Go ahead, my friend.
All right, man. Well, let's get her started. Let's address the elephant in the room. We have a guy who opened up a huge underdog, and if any of you guys jumped on that, props to you, because he is no longer a big underdog. Costa's now sitting around minus 170, and you know what? I do agree with him being the favorite. However, I do think this line's being a bit blown out of proportion. Despite Costa being a decent opponent and probably a really good fight to start off the Dana White Contender Series show, I do think that he lacks a few things that can be taken advantage of. First of all, I was going to assume his size was going to be a problem here. I mean, 5'7" compared to 5'3", I think that was going to be a real issue. However, they did size up okay. With that being said, though, Costa, with all his great abilities, I think he lacks a lot of things defensively that a better fighter, especially at the UFC level, is going to be able to take advantage of. I've seen nothing but love from the Costa side, and whereas I do believe he should be the favorite here, and I do believe he's going to be have a decent chance at winning this, I do think that the line is a bit off. I mean, right now we're sitting at around, let's see, 72% implied on a few of these books. So it's really tough for me to get there for him to win that many times. I know we're going to go head to head on this one. I know we've talked about this in the chat before, and it's going to be a fun fight. With that being said, I mean, Costa's going to have probably the ground advantage, but it's not like Martinelli's going to be a fish out of the water. Then you talk about the striking differential. And I do think that Martinelli, despite him having a defensive liability with him keeping his hands low, feet planted, he's going to have the length. I think he's going to be able to pump out a few kicks as well. And I think he's going to be able to keep it close. So when you have the bigger fighter who I might think might have a physical advantage here, it's really tempting me to take a shot on the dog. Now, I know we're going to talk about this, and I know you're going to put out some really good points that you've mentioned me backstage. But for me, something's leaning me towards the Luna side, and I'm not getting as much love for Costa. I don't think I can play him at this minus 270 price tag. However, if anybody got in those dog odds, much respect to you, and I'm excited to hear your takes on it, Narco.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with definitely some of those points where, the Martini side, he has some height advantage here. He will have a reach advantage. However, I do favor the strength advantage to be on the shorter Costa guy. He looks pretty strong with his body lock takedowns. A little background on Costa. I mean, the guy is still young. He's 26. He's a BJJ black belt. He's really, really slick on the ground. The guy trains in some Brazilian warriors that's in Mexico. Not many like very good fighters out there, but the guy fights in the Lux promotion, and I think he's a champion there as a flyweight. The thing with him is in his fight against Kiki Gonzalez in his last fight, he gets hurt with a head kick. He literally gets dropped with a head kick. He's a shorter guy, and he's vulnerable to getting head kicked because how short he is. But the thing is, the other thing that I dislike with him is he tends to get in pocket exchanges a lot, and he likes to just throw those big hooks. The thing here, though, is Martinini really doesn't show a lot of power with his strikes. He does have a kicking game. He has decent kicks, but the power is lacking for me on tape with his hands. The other thing I think that's a key between these two guys is the level of opposition. I really believe that Costa has faced a much, much better level of opposition. And I keep harping, and I told a lot of people, like, Kiki Gonzalez looks to be a pretty good fighter. Jorge Calvo Martin, another guy that, Martinini just hasn't faced this type of opposition. I mean, you look at the last guy he fought in Paul Marquez Moreno, and the guy is not really good. And you could have made a case that he won that first round off of Martinini, which to me sends, really bad vibes. He throws, there's a portion in that fight where Martinini throws a leg kick, and that guy throws a right hand, and he literally drops him, which is a bad look against this type of guy. However, Martinini does have very slick submissions. He won a calf slicer in that fight. He went for a Sulayev stretch against another guy. He tried to go for it, but he didn't get it. The guy is kind of big for 125. I mean, he fights at 135. He fights at 125 now. But there's so many holes in his game, like striking wise. Like, he doesn't like pressure. When he's moving back, his hands are down. His chin is looking up at the sky. And the one thing Costa does do well is he throws big hooks, man. And I really think one of those hooks might land here against this guy. And, in another fight too, where he went for a takedown, he was in a guillotine and he was in half guard. So it wasn't, he didn't have it all in. But if you make that mistake with Costa, he's going to snatch your neck, man. He's much slicker on the ground. I think he's the better fighter everywhere here. So with that being said, I got in at minus 230. I still honestly think 230 is value for this guy. I think he has more of the UFC level skills. And Martinini just, outside of his kicking game, and he has like a decent jab, I really don't like anything else that he does. I mean, he's getting his legs kicked a whole lot in these fights. He's not checking any calf kicks. And I think those are going to be there too for him. And Costa, just to me, is the better overall fighter, better level of opposition, more UFC ready, and very, very dangerous on the ground. So the portion where Martinini is very good, and that's with submissions, I just don't think it's going to work here against Costa. So, give me Alessandro Costa here, minus 230. Give me Alessandro Costa by submission at plus 515. And I also like the under here at under 2.5. I got in at plus 155, and the line has completely been blasted away, and it's currently at minus 116. So I might not touch it at minus 116. But yeah, if you got in early, I think the under 2.5 is a pretty good spot. Sorry, it's a long-winded review here, but I really like the Costa side here. Liam, what do you have here, my friend?
Yeah, this is the one fight that I didn't get very deep into. In terms of the Costa side, I think that his jiu-jitsu looks pretty credible. It looks very scary, to be honest with you. The guy's like leaping through the air to the armbar series, and then his armbar series looks pretty technical on the ground as well. It's one thing to be able to be really athletic and dynamic and jump into position, but it's another thing to like more slowly, methodically pull at the arm and find finishes on the ground. So I think he looks pretty dangerous. His opponent has a very good record on paper, but I don't necessarily rate the regional scene he comes from as highly. So those were my top line thoughts, but really this is a fight that I won't lever an opinion on until I do a little bit more research. But the rest of the way, I got a lot of notes, so excited to dive in.
All right, my brother, no problem. We will go to those great notes. Go ahead, Gordo.
Yeah, I just want to say before we get this all started, this is Dana White Contender Series. I mean, this is a spot where the lines will get inflated like crazy. So if you are someone who wants to take a shot on the dog here, I would let the line keep moving. I mean, it's one of these ones where people want a bet, they want action. Usually a parlay these heavy favorites, and it makes it so these dogs are going to be a lot more inflated come fight time. And that's where I struggle, because usually when I set myself, I want to bet a dog, but the line's not there yet. I set a price. I'm like, hey, I'll probably bet it at this time. For me, for Martinetti, I was like, if Martinetti gets to plus 250, plus 260, I'll probably take a stab at it, because I do think the line should be a bit closer. That being said, the way the line is moving, he could be inflated all the way to plus 300 come fight time. People do like to parlay these Dana White Contender Series favorites, and I would just keep a lookout for that line moving, because lines do fly. You can tell by Narco getting on those early lines that they do move like crazy. So keep an eye out if you are looking to bet those dogs. Make sure you're keeping a track of where has the better lines, because they do move like crazy.
Yeah, very, very good takes there. I do, if I gave a prediction and I thought where this line would be, kind of think it's going to be in the minus 325, 350 range for Costa. That's my opinion. But with that being said, we have hit three figures, guys. We're at 103 people in here. Let's fucking go. And with that being said, we will move on to fight number 2. It is Dennis Bazooka versus Calvo Romero. And I will leave this one to Liam, because I know he has a ton of notes on this guy. So Liam, my friend, the floor is yours. Give the people what they want in this fight here.
Yeah, I think that this should be a very interesting fight, right? On paper, you've got one guy coming back here for another Contender Series opportunity, right? He came here last year. He unfortunately was dealt Melsik the Gun Bagdasarian, which if you guys have ever seen him fight, he's just terrifying, right? Like last guy I'd sign on the dotted line to fight in the UFC, because he's near the weight I'd have to be at, 145. So just an absolute stud of a human being. The guy looks like he's on very good vitamins, and he also throws a hell of a kick. So he's really difficult to deal with. He's got a southpaw double attack. He can throw a left straight. He can throw a high kick. And he kind of overwhelmed Bazooka a little bit early. Bazooka was able to storm back. He wins the second round. He puts a lot of pressure on him. He finds some takedowns, shows a very good account of himself, and kind of just fell off a little bit of a cardio cliff in the third round. They both sort of did. Melsik's physicality took over a little bit there. I think that what we're going to see in this fight is an improved Bazooka. I do think that he had some, personal circumstances going into the fight. It's the fight game. A lot of people do. He was sick going into that fight. I have it on pretty good account. So don't hold that too hard against him. If you're sick and you can get a 29-28 decision against Melsik Bagdasarian, that's actually pretty impressive to me. And I think that he's still got a bright future. On the other side, I think that Romero is a guy who's got a lot of physicality, a lot of raw skills. Would not be surprised if he got takedowns in this fight, especially early. He's kind of just a pace fighter, though. I think that most of what he does, he brings a high pace, high pressure, very intense fighting style. But there's a lot of fat on his game right now. I think he's got to trim from the grappling portion, from the wrestling portion, and also his defense on the feet is just underwhelming. Right, I was able to source a kickboxing match he did that's not on Tapology, but he was like getting overconfident. It was kind of a mismatch. He looked like the much bigger guy, and he was landing a bunch of big shots early, had his hands down like he's known to do in some of these fights as well, and he got clipped on the chin, damn near was out, like woke back up, took a couple seconds. The referee's telling him to put his hands up and face me. He's facing his opponent, still mouthing off. Like, I don't know that he knew where he was for a second. And then the rest of the fight, he's like leaning into the guy and holding on to him. So he doesn't look very comfortable to me on the feet. And I think that's a problem against Bazooka. I think that his anti-wrestling game should be enough here to keep the fight upright for most of the time, to answer with some big shots. He does have a decent bit of power. I'm not sold on the under 2.5, just because I do think that there's a good chance it could go under 2.5. There's a good chance it could end in that last 2.5 minutes because, Bazooka's not really a guy who's putting a ton of guys out in the first round. A lot of these guys, he's like attritionally beating down over time, even in the wins that he gets via decision. And I also just want to point out the other loss he took early in his career was at 155 pounds. That guy was massive, and that guy was really good at wrestling. I think that guy would out-wrestle Calio Romero as well. But Romero's not bad. He's just had the same problems for a while, which concerns me. He doesn't get a lot of control when he takes people down, and he didn't when he was in high school, and he doesn't now. So I think that that's a problem. I went back and watched his high school state championship match. Kid's a good wrestler, man. He's got some good stuff on the feet, but I think on the ground he leaves a little bit to be desired. I would not be surprised if Bazooka was able to lock something up. Would not be surprised if Bazooka was able to put hands on him. Wouldn't be surprised if Bazooka won a decision, but overall I like Bazooka.
All right. Great breakdown there from my buddy Liam. For me, Dennis Bazooka is still young, man. He's 24 years old. He's learning a lot. He's training with some of the best fighters out there in Aljamain Sterling. Aljamain Sterling took this guy under his wing. I read an interview, I heard an interview with Aljamain Sterling saying, we nicknamed this guy Bazooka because he has bazooka for hands because he hits very hard. When you look at his record, he doesn't have a lot of knockouts, but he does seem to throw with power when I look at it. He does love to go to the body, which I really like to see from a young fighter. His boxing is pretty much on point. He does have nice hands. The problem I see with him is he just doesn't move his head at freaking all, man. Like, it's always on the center line. It's never moving. I don't think that's going to be a problem in this fight because Calio Romero's hands are just not very good. He's more of a wrestler, like you mentioned, and he wants to get this fight to the ground. My concern here is I do think Bazooka is the much better fighter here. But my concern is when I went back and watched tape against Josh Roller, which was 5 months ago. Josh Roller's a BJJ black belt. He wrestles himself. And in that fight, it's an extremely close fight. Roller gets Bazooka's back. Roller gets on top multiple times, gets takedowns in that fight. The thing I do like what I see from Bazooka is he's always working to get up. He's not settling in these positions. He's not letting Josh Roller get comfortable. So he is doing some stuff right, but he is getting taken down. And that is a concern when you're facing another guy like Romero that's, he's a wrestler, albeit I don't really like what I see as far as MMA wrestling. Like, he's not that good. But the thing with Bazooka is, man, the guy has an unbelievable chin. He's extremely gritty. He has a good gas tank. Romero, on the other hand, guy's training a Team Alpha Male, but when you watch this guy's tape, it's just not very impressive. And the opposition is just not very good, man. I mean, Israel Delgado, he went to decision with. The other thing that I couldn't find tape on, but Jonas Flock, for Christ's sake, is a grappler, is a BJJ guy. Like, he knocked him out in the first round. I just want to know how. How did this guy knock you out in the first round? Did he head kick you? Did he, it says punches, but like, I don't know what happened. I would love to know if anybody knows.
For whatever it's worth, I messaged Jonas Flock and I messaged whoever runs that fight league. And I got word back from the fight league. They asked who I was interested in the fight for. I told them what fight I'm looking for, and I haven't heard back from them since. So I haven't gotten much further than that, but I have at least reached out. So if I know, you guys will know.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. The one other thing with this guy, he is a purple belt in BJJ, so he's not like completely clueless on the ground. So he's a wrestler, and he has a bit of grappling. But Dennis Bazooka is pretty good defensively. He's cognizant of what's going on. I saw it in the Roller fight. The one other fight I do need to mention, which is really important, is the Shaquan Moore fight that I watched. Shaquan Moore comes on late notice. Shaquan Moore is strictly a boxer. And I'm going to be completely honest with you. I scored that fight 29-28 more, which is not a good look. You know, the only other thing I'll say is it might not have a big impact in this fight because Moore is strictly stand-up and he's a boxer, while Romero, his boxing is not very good. With that being said, I'm not going to touch a money line on this fight because it's just I don't want to lay this price against a wrestler for Bazooka. I do think he wins. However, I do like the Bazooka KO. I took a little bit of that plus 275. I think he does hit very hard. I think Aljamain Sterling is right in saying he hits hard. And the other thing, when I see a guy getting knocked out by Jonas Flock, and now he's fighting an actual striker that has power, I'm going to take a shot at plus 275 against you, my friend. So give me that knockout prop on Bazooka plus 275, and I do believe he's going to win this fight. Gordo, long-winded again, sorry, but the floor is yours, my friend.
Good. Hey, man, Bazooka's a badass name. Let me just say that, man. And he, honestly, if I'm going to be straight up with you guys, he's one of my favorite money lines in the entire card. I think he's one of my most confident picks, just because I think we look at the Romero side and it leaves a lot to be desired. I mean, when you're looking at a guy who's supposed to be a wrestler, you want the ability to have control time, the ability to scramble, and also the ability to do it for multiple rounds, have that cardio. I don't think he has the best cardio. I think he'll probably be out-grappled in the submission area. And I also think that when it comes to being able to control him, that I think Bazooka may be able to get up throughout the most of the time. Then we look at other aspects of the game. I mean, who has the better camp? I'm definitely down to the Bazooka side. Look at the striking. I think it's night and day. Romero leaves a lot to be desired. As you guys mentioned with the striking, those swinging hooks don't really do that much. And I think that when it comes to technicality, we're going to have that Bazooka edge once again. So then we come down to level of competition. We're going to talk about that a lot today. Dana White Contender Series matters a lot because you need that level of competition. Do you guys know what Romero's the record of Romero's opponents are when he wins? The record of his wins is 13-32. That is not something you want to see coming in here. And again, it's hard to look in WikiCap like that, but you go do the research, you go watch the fights, and I don't think that Romero's going to have that same type of control, same type of success throughout the later rounds that Bazooka's other opponents have. And if we look at the striking detrimental, the problem, the Mason Jones dead defense where he keeps his head right on the middle and just absorbs everything, he's able to withstand that. And who's going to have more power? Romero, Melsak Bagdasaryan. I do think that he's able to eat those shots. I do think he's able to drown him out through later rounds. I do think he's able to stay safe, get right back up. I'm liking Mr. Bazooka this weekend. So when it comes to betting this, I have not played it yet. I mean, money's still coming in, it looks like. You can get minus 190 right now in Bazooka. I might go there. For me, I just think he has a lot of advantage in this spot. And if you're betting on Romero, you're pretty much either banking on that pretty much gold standard chin right now to crack, or for Romero to develop some type of really good ground control game that we haven't really seen or been proven in the past. I'm liking the Dennis side. I'll probably get there on the money line, but I'm still waiting to see how this line moves.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think there's a portion of me that wants to bet Bazooka, not at this price, but if it starts getting tempting, I might jump in. The one other thing I do want to mention that was kind of a bad look for Bazooka is the fact that Bagdasaryan took him down in that third round, which is, it's kind of iffy to me why a guy like Bagdasaryan could take you down. But he is powerful. He is a strong guy in Bagdasaryan. So
I think that's just because he was sick and tired.
Yeah,
truth be told, because I've seen him defend in the third round in other fights. That's why I was like, wait.
I mean, it was a pretty high-paced fight too. I mean, all the striking and stuff. But moving on, it is fight number 3. It is Anton Turklage versus Acacio dos Santos. I can kick this one off here. Turklage, tall guy, 6'4", nice length, nice height. Very, for a guy that has a ton of amateur fights, which this guy does, and he's competed in the IMMAF level, he's still very raw to me, man, on tape. The guy's striking is very sloppy. He's very wild on the feet at times. He does have a lot of meme in him. Like, he does this spinning stuff. Like, he got that knockout, the spinning knockout last fight out against this Konstantin Soldatov guy. But, he's still very, very sloppy on the feet. He's not polished. However, I will say when he gets people down, I mean, his ground and pound is pretty nasty. I mean, He is throwing vicious elbows. He's trying to get you out of there. He's actually looking for submissions. He's looking for your back. I do like that part of him when he's on top. But there is a lot of question marks. I mean, this guy's striking, I'm going to tell you, it's sloppy. It's just very, very sloppy. The other question mark that I really, really have with this guy is his cardio. Like, I have no idea what it's going to look like past the 7.5 minute mark, guys. This guy's never been there. I don't know what it's going to look like past that level. The fact that he's so sloppy and explosive and does all these movements leans me to believe that this guy is going to have bad cardio come later in this fight. However, Acacio dos Santos, again, he's a long guy. He's 6'4". He's a purple belt in BJJ. I saw his grappling fights on Submission Circus against a very high-level guy in Jalton Almeida, but it just seemed like they weren't really Almeida wasn't taking it serious. He literally had Mount for about 3.5 minutes of that grappling fight, and he wasn't really going for submissions. He was just like playing around. It was very, very awkward. So, when I go back and watch that Bregario fight, Bregario is, I think he's a Muay Thai guy, right? And Bregario gets on top at certain points of this fight, which is a bad look. However, Dos Santos does scramble back up. His striking is also, I would call, very loopy and wild. He does seem like he throws with power, but it's sloppy. The other thing with Dos Santos that I kind of don't like is he gets stuck on the cage a lot. He was getting held by Bregario for long periods of time on the cage. He's getting into these wild exchanges against Scheffel in that fight, where he won a split decision, which is not a terrible look because Matthias Scheffel, he's a decent striker, and he won a split decision there. So I really like what I saw from winning that split decision against Scheffel. The other thing with Dos Santos is he's proven to go 3 rounds. I mean, he's won many, many decisions. I believe he's only had 1 loss, and he's 8-1 in decisions. So he does do well when the fight goes to decision. And I do think that if this fight gets later, it does favor Dos Santos. He seems to be pretty durable when it comes to taking punches. However, if he is being put on the ground against a big guy like Turkledge, and Turkledge does go for ground and pound, I think he might give his back up. I mean, he might give those spots for Turkledge to possibly sink in a submission. I did play Turkledge by submission at plus 1,400 for a quarter unit. But I also did honestly play plus 190 on the Dos Santos side, because just seeing how raw Turkledge is, I don't think it's fair to, have him at a minus 225 price tag against a guy that seems to be pretty durable. So for me, it's a kind of like a 50-50 fight here. I don't think it should be plus 190. So I took a shot on Dos Santos at plus 190, but I also played the submission on Turkledge. I couldn't look away at plus 1,400. Gordo, what do you have here?
There we go. We got the first big money, the prop of the year, plus 1,400. I like it. You know what? I'll be completely honest with you. This was the first fight I taped, and I'm happy I did, because I locked up plus 225 on Dos Santos, and that's where we're going to start, is where we played that money line right there. And because we know a lot more about the guy. The one thing we do know about Turkledge, as Dan pointed out, is he's got a pretty cool name. I mean, he is the Pleasure Man. So the Pleasure Man's got he came in with a hefty price tag because he is 7-0. He does have these flashy knockouts. But we're looking at what we know. And what we do know in this fight is not a lot from the Anton side. What we know is Santos is a guy who going to have the better cardio, in my opinion. I think he's going to have the better ground game. I think he's going to have the better he's fought against more adversity. He's been able to fight out these tough spots. And I think that if this fight gets extended at all, you're going to have to lean towards the Dos Santos side. The one thing I will give Anton is he's going to have that power to put the lights out of Ocasio in that first round. I think that is his win condition. When you're betting on a guy like Anton, you're looking for a quick finish, because that's what he does. Like you mentioned, 7 wins, 5 of them in the first round, never been past the 7-minute mark. We don't know what he's like. And from what we have seen, it has looked like he's kind of gassed. And that's been against mostly strikers. And I think that if Ocasio's smart, he does implement a grapple-heavy game plan. He hasn't shown to do that in the past, so I'm not looking for him to go out there and do that. I do think that's there. What I will say, though, is that one win condition for Anton, I think he's not going to be the better minute winner in the second and third rounds too. So he's going to need that knockout. So when you're looking at the betting line and you have someone like Dos Santos sitting at plus 225, you're pretty much saying there's a 70% implied chance that Anton gets him out in the very first round. And I don't see that happening. I think plus 225, 30% implied probability of Ocasio surviving that first round and putting it on him later on, whether it be with the grappling, with the pressure boxing, with the coming in, facing adversity. I do think that he's the more proven guy. And at those odds, I definitely had to take a shot on that. He's one of my favorite dogs this week. However, I do think that the Pleasure Man is a guy you have to really be careful of and wary of in that very first round. I don't mind your big plus money prop because a club and sub could be there for sure. That being said, I haven't seen enough from him to want to back him at this hefty price tag.
Yeah, great points. One thing I do want to point out that is a little bit important is it feels like UFC is trying to get this Anton guy into the UFC because I believe they gave him another chance before on Contender Series. He couldn't get visa. He had visa issues. He couldn't get in. And so they gave him this other opportunity. And I read some articles where people are kind of pushing this guy to try to get into the UFC. So we'll see. Great points. I'm glad we're on the same side on the Dos Santos money line. Liam, do you see anything different? Do you agree with us? What did you see there, my friend?
Yeah, so I mean, my top line analysis here was there's not a lot of information on this guy, which is unfortunate, but it's something that you have to take into account coming into these Contender Series fights. And I think sometimes it's about being creative in your capping. What can you try and come up with here? But I think one of the things that really stood out to me is this guy has almost regressed in his level of competition. He was fighting pretty solid guys when he was an amateur, and he had developed a decent enough record against guys that were winning fights, And I think that amateurs are different than pros for all sorts of reasons. The length of time, most especially, you can get by with worse cardio, but still, like, getting some experience is always a good thing. But you just see that he's kind of not really taken that step forward yet as a pro and fought somebody meaningful, somebody that matters, somebody that's really talented, somebody that could match him physically. I'm not sure that he's getting that here, though, either. That's the one thing about Santos that kind of concerns me is, like, this guy doesn't strike me as a very elite athlete. He seems like a guy who's technical. He's got some skills. He can do jiu-jitsu. So for all those reasons, the fact that he could win a 15-minute decision and he could stick around for all 15 minutes, and we know that is good, and it's a great data point to take with us. It's one angle with which to target this fight. But I do think that the athleticism advantage early, the fact that we've got a guy here who has been finished on the other side, 3 out of 4 losses inside the distance. You talked about taking the shot on the sub prop. That's 2 of his losses. Also been finished with strikes before. Or I think it was a TKO due to injury. But still, for any reason, right, a fight's getting stopped. Not loving it. Not loving the fact that this guy doesn't look that athletic to me when I watch him. He doesn't look like a dynamic mover. He seems a little bit stiff and stationary, I would say, on the feet. He can do a decent job of sticking in the fight at a tepid pace. But I just have a little bit of concerns about him in this spot early for the reasons Narco mentioned as well. Just in the sense that what if this guy does get clipped on the chin because the UFC is trying to get this guy into the organization. He's got a dynamic style. He's got those viral kind of knockouts that they really know how to promote. Whereas if you're a guy who goes to a lot of decisions, on Dana White's Contender Series, normally you're not being brought in as the A side. But sometimes those guys get the win. And when you can exploit the big underdog odds, when you can beat the market by so much like my man Gordo has done as well, it's like no brainer. You obviously want to get on that side. But for me, certainly where the line has gotten to, it's an easy stay away for me at this point. I'll just wait and see how these guys do. They don't seem, either one of them, like they've got a very bright future at this point. But perhaps if I can see more from this guy, Anton, I can say, hey, maybe there's something here. He's got a lot of raw potential. He's obviously an athlete. He's a very young guy still. So at light heavyweight, sky's the limit. But I do think that I'm going to have some tempered expectations, especially early on, because I don't know anything about his gym. Doesn't seem like he's training with the highest level pros to me. I can't figure out what he's done for the last year because he's completely ghost on social media. I can't back him.
Very good points. The one thing I will mention that I didn't mention, and I should have, is the fact that if you do want, and I think I'm going to take a stab, is because we know Anton's never been 7.5 minutes. How about the round 3 prop on Dos Santos? I mean, the guy's proven to be there. The guy's proven to have cardio, and it's plus 1,200. I don't mind it, honestly, because Anton, just because of how explosive he is, and if he does fight like that here, I don't see a guy like that going 3 rounds and being there after 3 rounds, because you've never been there too. So one guy has multiple times, one guy hasn't. I'm probably going to favor the guy that has and maybe take a small shot at the plus 1,200 prop there. But yeah, let's move on. Our next fight is canceled, which is a sad day for me, because I had the under 2.5 when it first opened and all that Bachelorette stuff. But the fight is gone. We will move on to the main event. But before we move on to the main event, please, 116 of you, you guys fucking rock. Please smash that like. Please subscribe to my channel. Please subscribe to Gordo's channel. It's down in the description. And also, please subscribe to Liam's YouTube channel. You're just doing us a huge favor while we give out all these great bets, all this great information. The least you guys can do is hit the like, subscribe to our channels. It would do us wonders. That's all we're asking for. And with that being said, we will move on to the main event. It is Ozzy Diaz versus Joseph Pfeiffer. You can kick this one off, Gordo. What do you have here in this main event for Dana White's Contender Series?
This is a very, very intriguing main event, in my opinion. I think it's one where you're going to get a spot with violence. I think that's one where you gotta lead off with saying that this is going to be a very violent main event. And I think that's why it's the main event slot, because not only the name value we have on Ozzy Diaz side compared to the people on this card, but they're going to bring a fight. And that's what you love to see on Dana White Contender Series, especially if you're getting 4 fights. You need one of that action-packed for sure. And it's a tough one. I came in pre-tape looking to bet Ozzy Diaz. I was going to take a shot on the dog. I thought he was the right side, but I do my tape, I do my research, and I'm kind of leaning towards the Pfeiffer side. And let me tell you why. I do think that when it comes to a mixed martial artist and throughout the, let's say, more certainties and not only just abilities, but also what we know, I do think Pfeiffer has that advantage. And I think that a good idea we have of this is the camp he's training at as well. He's going to have a very good camp behind him. He's going to have that grappling upside. He's going to be put to work, and you know that when he's working there, he's going to be improving that cardio. And I think that when we look at Ozzy Diaz's win condition, he's a very one-dimensional fighter. And I think he's going to go out there and he's going to swing heavy leather. And of course, it's a win condition. Of course, that is something that could definitely happen. But I don't see him necessarily as the minute winner. I don't see him necessarily as having any wrestling upside. I don't see him necessarily having any really ability to win this fight, despite that first or second round knockout. I think when it comes to cardio as well, despite not seeing too much from Pfeiffer, I do think that the camp he's working at allows him to have that better cardio advantage. So I do think that it is, I guess Pfeiffer's a dog, so I guess you can say dog or pass right now. The line is flip-flop like crazy, so it's really crazy. But I am looking for plus money on Pfeiffer, but it's a really tough spot. Originally, I was going to take the under, maybe play that with some Bachelorette. That was going to be fun. I have no action on this one yet. My lean is towards the Philly camp and Pfeiffer with the ability to mix in the takedowns, durable enough to withstand the early onslaught from Ozzy Diaz and wilt him through rounds 2 and 3. With that being said, do I say that with much confidence? No, I think it's a really close fight, and I would not be surprised with either outcome. I expect violence nonetheless, and I am going to lean towards the Pfeiffer side.
All right, Gordo on the Pfeiffer side, and he loves him some violence in this fight. Liam, what do you have here, my friend? I feel like you might be leaning one side, but we'll see.
Yeah, man. I would almost tend to agree with Gordo here, where I think that this is a very interesting fight. I think that when I looked at the Ozzy Diaz side, I was like, why do I remember this guy? And the reason I remember him is because I was watching LFA, and 4 underdogs in a row won on the LFA. And I was like, this is just getting absurd. I got to go bet the underdog. And Ozzy Diaz was the underdog in the main event. So I ended up cashing. He was the 5th one in a row, knocked out Bruno Assis. And I kind of knew that Bruno Assis, was maybe a little bit vulnerable to that. So I was like, you know what? I'll take the stab. And he was able to get it done. I do think that we're dealing with 2 kind of regional, stars here, right? On the one hand, you watch any house show that this guy's been a part of. He's a huge star. I'm talking about Ozzy Diaz. Everybody's there chanting his name, yelling, got big crowds out there for him. So he gets people fired up, right? They're probably going to travel to the Apex. I wouldn't be surprised, right? Dennis Bazooka said Albanians are going to be hanging out outside the Apex just to make their presence felt. So, like, I think that some of these guys have more fans than others, let's say, right? I don't think that our gentleman from Brazil is going to be bringing a huge contingency with him, right? You know what I'm talking about? So I think that on the Ozzy Diaz side, maybe that's something to consider. It is in Las Vegas. It's going to be a little bit closer to him and his contingency. But Pfeiffer, on the other hand, this guy was a huge star. And I think that the UFC might have been bringing him in as the A side against Dustin Stoltzfus. I'm actually not positive about that because Stoltzfus represents German MMA. German MMA historically stinks in the UFC. So they're trying to, recycle, bring somebody new in, give a new chance. I'm just being honest, right? Retrospective. But then we talk about, on the other side, maybe they were trying to set up this Pfeiffer guy who's very fun. He's got a dynamic style. He's competing in a bunch of these organizations that they tend to respect on the East Coast as well. And then he's got this injury, right? Tough injury. I thought he was actually doing very well. He landed a bunch of hard kicks, a bunch of hard punches. The guy seems like he's got a chin made of granite. He's eating absolute bombs regionally and basically no-sells them most of the time. I think that could be a difference maker with Ozzy Diaz. Maybe he's the biggest puncher that he's fought to date. But I also think that so far from what I've seen, this guy doesn't get affected much by the shots. And when he does, he's able to compose himself pretty quickly. Seems to have that good recoverability. He is the younger fighter here, so that's also something to consider. Ozzy Diaz has been knocked out before, has been clipped hard, has been rocked in his fights, but he also has big power, and that can't be discounted. He's been in fights where they were super competitive, and then all of a sudden he lands and the fight's over shortly thereafter. So he's got big knockout power, so does Pfeiffer. I think they both have kind of tricky submission games. This Ozzy Diaz character, he's training with Josh Barnett. He's getting looks with a bunch of guys that are pretty talented in jiu-jitsu. I wrote down some of them as well. He's training with Bruno Souza, black belt, I believe, Chase Gibson, Weber Almeida, Gabe Green. So very talented guys that he's getting looks with. But the same thing can be said for Joseph Pfeiffer. And he's only gotten better in terms of his training environment over time. Suffers that setback against Stoltzfus when he was already quite a good fighter. Ends up re-emerging with this camp that's on a freaking heater right now. Marquez MMA, Daniel Gracie as well. This guy is just running an absolute elite camp in Philly. There's no two ways about it. A lot of very good fighters coming out of there. Haven't lost a fight in a long time. He's training with the Andre Petroskis of the world, the Sean Brady's, these other guys. Is he really going to see a better grappler here in Ozzy Diaz? I find that hard to believe. So I do think it's going to be a hell of a fight. I think that either man can win. I think either man could get hurt in this fight. But ultimately, I think that the odds now reflect the true, probabilities of the fight, where either guy could win it. Whereas before it opened minus 300, that's just, batshit crazy, to be honest with you. So it's a good fight. I'm excited, man. I think Pfeiffer's going to bring an honest fight, but it might be a little bit biting off more than he could chew. Because the one thing is, Ozzy Diaz has been around for a long time. He had his first fight a very long time ago. He's been training a very long time, mostly with high-level guys. So I would not count him out in this spot. I wouldn't think he should be a big underdog here either. But based on the youth, based on everything I've seen, the potential wrestling upside, the physicality, I kind of like the Pfeiffer side just ever so slightly more. But I do think the fight is lined appropriately.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with a lot of what you said. I couldn't get to the money line side here. It's two guys that, I believe Pfeiffer's striking is not bad. He's got very good leg kicks. He has decent boxing. But, I do see him grapple a lot in these fights. He wrestles a lot. And in many of these fights, he's getting takedowns. He has 2 submissions. In his fight against Stoltzfus, like you mentioned, he was probably winning that fight, albeit it was early, but he was winning that portion of the fight up until he gets slammed and his arm, just breaks in half. And, in his last fight against Austin Trotman, I didn't like a lot of what I was seeing because he was getting hit a lot. He kind of got rocked in that fight against Trotman, which wasn't a very good look. But like you mentioned, the guy is tough. He eats a lot of punches. I don't think that's a good idea here against Ozzy Diaz because I do believe Ozzy has really, really big power in that right hand. And I think if he lands correctly, I think he might be able to put out Pfeiffer. But how I believe the fight's going to play out is I do think Pfeiffer being in Daniel Gracie now and being with those guys that, it's a grapple heavy kind of camp. And I know he's probably, sharpening his jiu-jitsu skills. He's sharpening his grappling skills there. I do think he's going to go to the wrestling here. I do think that he's going to be able to get Ozzy Diaz down. Is he going to be able to hold him down? I don't know. However, I do think he's the better grappler here and the better wrestler. And if he gets on top, or if he gets Ozzy Diaz's back, I mean, it's possible that this guy can land a submission here. And it's plus 800 by submission. I'm going to take the guy that is going to wrestle here, the guy that I believe is going to land a takedown, because when he does get those body locks, when he does get those double legs, guys are going for a ride. Like, they're going down, man, because he is pretty strong. And so I do think he's going to be able to get Diaz down. It's a matter of, is he going to be able to get position? Is he going to be able to hold him down? And if he does, I do think he can get a submission here. I mean, Diaz, albeit in the amateurs, was subbed by Dominic Reyes, who's obviously UFC level fighter. But I mean, he was subbed there. And when you look at the level of opposition that Diaz has faced, it's been primarily strikers. Like, watching these fights, like it's most of these guys that he's fought are strikers. So I think Pfeiffer brings in a different type of fight. I think he's a striker slash, wrestler grappler. So I kind of lean on the wrestler grappler side here, because I think in the stand-up, they're pretty close, honestly, technically, but the power is on the Ozzy Diaz side. But then when you talk about wrestling and grappling, I favor Pfeiffer, honestly. So I'm just going to take the little submission prop here at plus 800. I'm not going to mess with any money line, because I do think it's lined properly at this point. But like you said, like, minus 300 on one side or the other was absolute bonkers. And I wish I saw it early. I wish I taped it early. I would have definitely got on the Pfeiffer side at minus, at plus 250 or whatever it was. And honestly, the line is bet down properly. It should be in this level. And I do think this is a coin flip type of fight. So yeah, I'm going to pass on the money line, and I'm going to go with the submission prop. Plus 800. The other thing I do want to mention that's important, Ozzy Diaz, honestly, hasn't been to a decision in ages. You're talking over 10 years between pros and amateurs. So, I mean, that's something to look at too, because he's in the pro ranks. He's never even been to the 7.5 minute mark. So that's something to keep in mind. Not that Pfeiffer is some cardio machine, but it's always something to look at. Pfeiffer also himself hasn't really been to the 7.5 minute mark, maybe once. No, I'm sorry. He's been to decision once, and that was early on. So, something to think about, but I'm going to take the submission prop. And yeah, that about wraps it up. There was only 4 fight guys. Thank you, everybody. 114 of you still here. Smash the like, smash the subscribe button. Go to these guys' YouTube channels. Do the same thing, please, guys. We're going to kill it this season in Dana White's Contender Series. And with that being said, I'm going to leave the floor to Gordo. Tell them, Gordo, where they can find you, your YouTube channel, and what else you have going on, my friend.
This is going to be so much fun this year, guys. I can't wait. I know we're getting started with only a 4-fight card, but we're going to get her going. We got some good ones going on, and I look forward to doing this every single Monday. That's right. Mark it in your calendars, 10 p.m. Eastern time every Monday. Write that down. I appreciate you having me on, Narco. You can find me at Plays and Fade Sports. My YouTube is in the description down below, as well as I've commented a few times on this show itself. In terms of my plays, I'll be posting them on my Bet MMA tips, which you can find on my Twitter at GamblesGordo. Post everything there. If you guys want to talk anything fights related, DFS wise, shoot me a DM. Always game to talk. So appreciate talking fights. It's gonna be a good Tuesday night. I look forward to it.
Awesome, man. Awesome having you. Awesome being a co-host with you. And yeah, we're gonna kill this first week and just chug along week after week, boys. Liam, my friend, floor is yours. Tell them where they can find you and all the good stuff you have going on.
Absolutely, brother. Appreciate you. Check out my man at Delphi Commish. The dude has just been on absolute fire. Had a perfect bracket for the home run derby. Just doing unreal shit. So please go check him out at Delphi Commish. Shout out to my man. You can find me everywhere at LiamPicksFights. I'm always talking fights. I'm thinking about fights. I'm writing notes on fights. I'm watching fights. So if you need to talk fights, I'm your guy. And I truly appreciate this opportunity. It's a pleasure to speak with both you guys always. And we're going to keep getting better and better every week as well, because now that we're back in the flow of things, we got the old schedule where it's Tuesday and Saturday, ready to rock and roll every time. So I'm excited. It's just going to keep getting better, boys.
Yeah, man, I can't wait week after week. This is going to be the show to be at. We're going to try to give you guys winners each and every week, and that's what we're here for, guys. Jay is asking, what book do you use for Dana White's Contender Series props? So BetOnline has the props now, but I do believe from last year that I'm not sure about FanDuel, but I know DraftKings will drop props. I believe the day of. Usually it was the night before, but I believe the day of they will drop some props on DraftKings. I'm not sure about MGM and all those other books, but if you guys know any other books, go right ahead.
365 and Betway will throw them out as well.
Awesome. There you go. That's 4 books. Mushroom is asking, Mushroom, you and these damn parlays, you're killing me. Dana White's Contender Series Week 1 parlay? I mean, come on, Mushroom. All right, guys, if you have one for him, please let him know, because Mushroom won't leave us alone if we don't give him one. I'm telling you guys. He's not going to leave.
This is a tough one for me. I would have to keep it to a 3-legger because I didn't see enough from the other fights, but it's going to be pretty chalky, folks. I'd be going the Bazooka, Anton, Pfeiffer route, personally. That's probably what I would look at myself.
Oh. See, I'd be getting a bit fancier. I don't have 3 money lines I'm confident in, so I'd take the Bazooka side, and I'd take the under in the Dos Santos and the Pfeiffer Diaz fight. So 2 unders and then the money line of the Bazooka.
All right. Yeah, I honestly, I'm not messing with parlays, but if you want one, I'm pretty confident in Costa. So I'm going to go Costa and the Bazooka money line for a 2-legger. It might be around even money or something. So yeah, this card is only 4 fights. Mushroom, stop messing with us. Don't do this to us. Brian Caputo says, Pfeiffer by finish, Costa by finish, and Dennis money line. Oh, not bad. Not bad. That will give you.
I like it. I actually like it, Brian. Don't tempt me.
A nice plus money tag there on that parlay. But yeah, guys, 100 of you still in here rocking with us. Thank you very much, guys. We will be back next Monday, same time, but different bat channel, boys. It's probably going to be either Liam's or Gordo's. We will figure it out. We will let you know, and we will rotate every week. And yeah, guys, thank you very much. Let's cash some tickets tomorrow. Let's fucking go.